Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Madam Secretary. Secretary Noem, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff recently said that the Trump administration is actively looking at suspending habeas corpus. Last week you were asked about this, and I want to clarify your position because it's obviously really important to get this right. So, Secretary Noem, what is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am. Habeas
right
corpus. Excuse me. That's incorrect.
President
habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason. Habeas corpus is the foundational right that separates free societies like America from police states like North Korea. As a senator from the Live Free or Die state, this matters a lot to me and my constituents and to all Americans. So, Secretary Noem, do you support the core protection that habeas corpus provides, that the government must provide a public reason in order to detain and imprison someone?
Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today, we've got something big to talk about. A Senate exchange that honestly left me shaking my head. It's about habeas corpus, the cornerstone of our constitutional freedom. And the responses from Secretary Kristi Noem during this hearing really raised some red flags. Now, I'm not here to sling mud or play politics. I'm here as an American who believes in the Constitution, in liberty, and in holding every government official accountable, no matter which party they come from.
Yeah, I support habeas corpus. I also recognize that the President of the United States has the authority under the Constitution to decide if it should be suspended or not.
It has never
Let
been,
us be clear, though,
it has never been done. It has never been done without approval of Congress. Even Abraham Lincoln got retroactive approval from Congress. So I have been asking executive branch nominees a simple question over the past few months. If the president orders them to break the law, I've been asking, will you follow the law or follow the order? I want to ask you a more specific question here. If the president tries to suspend habeas corpus and a federal court reverses the president's order, will you comply with the court order and uphold habeas corpus, or will you follow the president's directive?
We are following all federal court orders and are complying with that, as is the president, and every decision that I make as well.
That is obviously not true for anybody who reads the news. There are federal court orders right now, including returning somebody who was deported mistakenly. But to be clear, this is about a fundamental legal right that ensures that we live in a free society instead of a police state that would have a sham legal system like Russia or North Korea. So I'm glad that you have now committed to following court orders. I'm glad you believe in the basic freedom for Americans if ordered to do so by a court. And again, I want just to make clear that it is critically important that even if the president tries to suspend the right of people to know why they've been detained or imprisoned, if a federal court reverses that order, that you will follow that order. And I hope all members of the administration will, because it's obviously critical that some of the people, for instance, who've been deported by mistake, who didn't get due process, be returned in compliance with court orders. So now, let's move on to another issue. International criminal organizations target Americans with sophisticated cyber crime, including elaborate scams that robbed Americans of billions of dollars, with seniors in the United States losing $5 billion to scammers in 2024 alone. As artificial intelligence improves, so does the ability of criminals to deceive and defraud Americans. With this new technology, criminals can impersonate loved ones, develop advanced malware, or make more convincing phishing messages. How is DHS working to identify trends in illegal activity and ensure that new AI systems have safeguards in place to prevent their use in criminal activity?
Yes, we are working extensively through CISA, but in all of our agencies to make sure that we're going after these criminal, nefarious actors. I would say partnering with private industry is critically important so that we have the insight that we need to really understand the tactics that they use and the advancements in software. The AI ability that they have to adjust and to supersede some of our systems is incredible. And so investing in those systems is important, but also having the knowledge and bringing everybody to the table and breaking down the silos between our agencies and our intelligence agencies is important, so we all have the information that we need to get.
Well, and that gets me to one final point and question here, because Senator Peters began to ask about it. There's been recent reporting that indicates that the Chinese government installed remote access to Chinese-made power inverters in the U.S., raising concerns that the Chinese government could try to disable parts of our power grid. And you made a comment following up on Senator Peters' question about the importance of not only working with private industry on this issue, as you would also want to work on AI, but also on working with state and local governments on cybersecurity. And can you just talk to me a little bit about how DHS is partnering with state and local governments right now on cyber?
Well, that's one of the core critical missions of CISA, is to help those state and local governments harden their systems. We're extremely vulnerable by our weakest link. And so when you have a small state that doesn't have the resources it needs to invest in these security operations, then they're vulnerable to attacks and hacking attempts, and they can access our systems. If they have a contract or a system that interfaces with the federal system, it makes us vulnerable as well. So we are responsible for 10 of the 16 critical infrastructures under the Department of Homeland Security, and making sure that China can't come in and shut down our electrical grid, our water systems, things that people rely on every day for their day-to-day lives is very important. So that's why we need these kind of partnerships, is to make sure that we're secure all the way down to our smallest actor that participates.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate working more with you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, in this hearing, a senator asked Secretary Noem what habeas corpus is, and her answer, well, let's just say it wasn't quite right. She called it a presidential right to remove people or suspend their rights. Folks, that's not what habeas corpus means. Habeas corpus is the right of every person to demand that the government explain why they're being detained. It's the line between freedom and tyranny. Without it, the government could throw you in a cell and never tell you why. That's exactly what our founders fought against when they wrote the Constitution. Now, look, I respect Secretary Noem for her service, but this isn't a small slip-up. If people at the highest levels of government don't understand or respect constitutional rights, like habeas corpus, then we've got a problem, a big one. And it's not about left or right here. It's about liberty. If the government ever tries to suspend habeas corpus, you can kiss your freedom goodbye. That's not America. That's what happens in authoritarian countries like North Korea or communist regimes where the government is judge, jury, and jailer. The senator then asked Noem whether she would obey the law, whether she'd follow a federal court order if a president tried to suspend habeas corpus. And she said yes. But the senator pointed out something a lot of Americans are noticing. Our leaders don't always follow court orders these days. We're seeing more and more executive actions that push the limits of the law, more agencies that act without accountability. And that should concern everyone who believes in limited government. Because here's the truth. Government overreach doesn't start with tanks in the streets. It starts when leaders forget the limits of their power. It starts when they think the Constitution is just a suggestion. And if we, the people, don't speak up, if we just shrug and say, oh well, that's politics, then we lose the very freedoms generations of Americans fought and died to defend. Now, the hearing did move on to cybercrime and national security. And I'll give Secretary Noem some credit here. She talked about the threat of AI-driven scams, how criminals are using advanced tech to target Americans, especially seniors. That's a real issue. She also mentioned China, how Chinese-made equipment might be giving the CCP remote access to our power grid. That should alarm every American. We cannot let foreign powers control the systems that keep our lights on, our water running, and our hospitals operating. This is exactly why we need strong cybersecurity, made in America, secured by Americans, for Americans. Because if Beijing can flip a switch and turn off our grid, then all the freedoms in the world won't matter much. So, what do we take away from all this? 1. Every American should understand what habeas corpus means. It's not a partisan issue. It's your right to be free from unlawful detention. 2. Every leader, from the president down, must be held accountable to the Constitution, not personal power. And 3. We've got to wake up to the threats from abroad and the erosion of liberty at home. Cybersecurity, constitutional literacy, government accountability, these aren't political issues. They're survival issues for a free nation. I'll end with this. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We, the people, have to stay informed, stay involved, and never be afraid to demand the truth from our leaders, from our media, and from ourselves. If you believe in protecting freedom, in defending the Constitution, and in keeping America strong, hit that like button, share this video, and let's keep the conversation going. This isn't about left versus right. It's about freedom versus control. And I know which side I'm on.